Hello and welcome to a new Google Forms, Google Sheets, and Google Apps Script video in Practical Sheets. Today we're going to do conditional dropdowns in forms. In theory, you may not do conditional dropdowns in forms. We're going to use sheets, sections, and a whole bunch of Google Apps Script for you to easily mimic conditional dropdowns in Google Forms. I'll show you how it looks. So here is the finished form. You have 5 countries. If you select one of those countries, you go to the cities of that country, and when you select it, it ends the form. Let's go to another one, and it goes to the section automatically of the country or of the category you want, and then the city, and finally you hit submit. Okay, nicest thing is that we're going to create a Google Sheet where you'll receive just the country and the city, and that's it. Because one of the limitations I had in all of my testing of this method is that if you leave the native form of connection between form and sheets, it will create a very big sheet, very disordered, and it's very difficult to keep track. So we're going to have to use Google Apps Script also to record the answers, but this is very easy. I think this is the easiest part. The most difficult part to understand and to implement is creating the sections in Google Apps Script. So the best part of this is that this will automatically update every time I update my options. So here you're seeing some things in Spanish because this is from my Spanish channel, but of course we're going to do everything in English. So I hope you like it. We'll start from scratch. This may prove a bit long, but if you want to just download the template and start working on it, you can go to the Patreon page where you'll find this and more than 150 templates of sheets, forms, app sheet, app script, and much, much more. Thank you so much to my patrons, and thank you for watching this video. Let's begin. We're going to start with a new sheet. We're going to call these options, and we're going to paste any 2 categories you want, a category and a subcategory. To make it a bit fun, I'm going to have in my category rock bands, and in my subcategory the albums of these bands. So the idea is that in Google Forms, when I select one of these bands, the next question will be the albums of this band. But again, this will work for product and product category and country and city and anything you may need. So let's go directly to our forms. Tools, create a new form. So I'm going to explain to you manually how this will work, and then we're going to start the app script. Normally, we'll begin with the question, the main question. In this case, the main question will be the group or the band. So let's call this group. And for now, let's just put these 2. The second question will not be a question, will be a section. So we're going to add, again, as I told you, we're going to mimic a conditional dropdown. What we're going to do is that for each option, we're going to create a section, and each section will have the sub options. So the trick here is to use the navigation. So depending on the option you select, you go to the section. Doing it for 2 or 3 options is very easy. You can do it manually and you don't need to do any code. But if you have 5 or 10 options, and each of these 5 to 10 options has another 3, 5, 6 options, then doing it manually will be cumbersome. And if these options and sub options change a lot, then it's too manual. So this is why we're going to the code. But if you just have a couple of options, you can do it manually, as we're going to do here. So the first section we're going to call Foo Fighters, and we're going to create a question that are the albums of Foo Fighters. And let's copy them here, and let's paste them here. Okay, and then we're going to create another section that's going to be called Weezer. And these are the albums of Weezer. And let's paste them here. Okay. Now, what is the important thing here? There are a couple of things. The first one is that in my multiple selection, I'm going to these 3 dots and select go to section based on answer. And we'll tell it that for Foo Fighters, we're going to go to this section 2, and for Weezer, we're going to go to this section 3. Very important that in each of the sections, I have to tell it that it should send the response immediately. If not, this will happen. Let's publish first, and let's copy the link and paste it in another tab. So let's select, for example, Foo Fighters. Let's go next, and it will go to the Foo Fighters album. If I select one album, then it'll go to Wizard, so it does not make any sense. We have to fix that. If, on the other hand, if we go to Wizard, that is the last option, and we go next, and then select an album, and then hit send, it will send it. So the problem is in the Foo Fighters, or in the options that are not the last one. So this is why I have to, here at the end of each section, select Submit Form. The last section does not have this option, only the interior section. So now I have a very simple conditional dropdown. But what happens if I have 5 options and 5 sub options for each option? So this is where having a code will prove very useful. So let's do it because it'll take just a little while. Let's go to extensions, AppScript. We're going to call this function conditional dropdown. Let's first do a kind of index, and also called pseudo algorithm, that it's just a guide for us to code. So first we're going to do all the connections and declarations of variables and null. It's more organized this way. Then we're going to reset the form, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. Then we're going to create the first question, that is let's say that there's a main category and then there's subcategories. So let's create the main category. This will have 2 sub steps. The first one is organize array from sheets. So the information, the options we have in sheet, we need to do a couple of things to it, and then we're going to create the question. The last step is create the subcategories. That this could also divide it into create each section, create the question, and finally link the subcategory to the main category. Lastly, we're going to close the main question. So let's go through it. First, we're going to connect with Google Forms and Google Sheets. Then we're going to reset the form, because there is no way that I have discovered to update the questions. So I need to, each time I update, I need to delete all of the questions and create everything again. Then we're going to create the main category, in this case the bands, bringing all of this data and then carrying it to the questioning forms, creating the question. And then with all this information I brought, all the bands, we're going to create the subcategory. Remember that I need to create one section for each band, then one question for each band, and fill the question with the albums or the subcategories, each question. And finally, we're going to link Wizard to the main question that was Wizard. And then once I do that, I can tidy all up, closing the main question. You'll understand it better while we move on. So let's start with the connections. We're going to connect first with Google Forms and then with Google Sheets. So let's do let form, a variable called form. This will be form app dot open by ID or open by URL, whichever you prefer. If it's URL, you're going to copy all of this in your editable form. If not, if you're going to do open by ID, you're going to select this number and alphanumeric character that's after this slash and before slash edit. Let's copy it and let's paste it. Just make sure that you paste it between quotation marks. Then we're going to connect to Google Sheets for our worksheet. This will be spreadsheet app. And here we're going to call our active worksheet with get active spreadsheet. Then we're going to connect to a specific sheet, this options sheet, so we can bring all of the information later. We're going to create another variable called spreadsheet options. And for this, we're going to the already declared worksheet dot get sheet by name. So we can select a specific sheet by its name. In our case, it's called options. Okay. So let's create our main categories. How do we do this? Knowing that we've already connected to this sheet, I'm going to bring all of this array. How? With the getDataRange method. So I'm going to do SS options. This is connecting to our options spreadsheet. Do getDataRange. So we can select all of the table we have, and finally do getValues. Let's save this in a data variable. First, we need to isolate the group or the main category. How do we do this? With the map function. So data.map, and we're going to go row by row and just extract whatever it finds in column 0. Column 0 is this. So we're going to just extract all of the groups, and let's call these categories. But remember that this is duplicated and I need them not to be duplicated. So we can do a couple of things. The first thing we're going to do is to remove the first element of these categories, that is the header. I don't need the header. So let's do categories shift. So it'll remove the header. Secondly, we're going to remove the duplicates. So actually these categories has duplicates. So what I could do is rename this symbol as duplicate categories. Duplicate categories. Duplicate cat. It's a bit easier. And now I'm going to remove the duplicates. The way I do it is that here in my connections and declarations, I'm going to declare another variable called cats. These are the categories, and it just be an empty array. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my duplicate categories and go one by one and see which one is duplicated and only copy one of each. So I do this by looping through my duplicate categories array with the for each method. I'm going too fast, I'm sorry, but this will take a long time. If you have trouble with any line, please just write me a comment. So we're going category by category. And what we're going to do for each category is that we're going to see if this category already lives in this new array. Of course, the first time this array is empty, so it will always say there is nothing there. So there are no duplicates. But then in the second, in the third, in the fourth one, it may find some duplicates. So how do we find duplicates? We're just going to look for an element in that array. We look for an element in the array with index of. It's like a match in Excel or Sheets. So we're going to look for this category in this array, and if it finds it, it will return a number greater than -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what I needed to do is that if it's -1, this means it has not found it. Let's enclose this in an if conditional statement. So if it does not find it, so I need you to include it. Cats.push, and let's include this new category. I know this, if you have never done this, it may sound a bit weird. Again, ask me if you are stuck in any part. Now we have our categories, and let's see if it works. Let's do logger log, and let's look for our categories. Let's save, and let's run it. It will ask me for permissions the first time, I think. Let's review. Let's select the account, advanced, select the project. For now, it's untitled. Select all, that is Google Sheets and Google Drive. Let's continue. And here it is. We already have our bands without duplicates. This is what I wanted, so perfect. Now we're going to create the question in Google Forms. How do I do that? I've already have my form that I declared at the beginning, and we're going to add an item. You need to select which type of question are you going to add. In this case, we're going to add a multiple choice item. Open and close parentheses, and then we can give a title to it, and the title will be, in our case, it will be group or band. But easier still, given that you have this data and you know that the first data, the point of this data is the name of your category, in this case group. So we can do a hack here and do data 0, 0. This means row, the first row and the first column, and it will always bring group. So this will work in any case depending on your data. So for now, let's do this. Let's save it and let's run it. Let's go to our form. And you can see that it has created the question here, down here. But we still have all of these questions and all of these sections. This is why I told you some minutes ago that I need to reset the form. We just did this in the last video of the channel, so you can go and see how we did it, but we're going to do it in a very simple way. We're just going to connect with our form and get all of the items. Let's call this, let's store this in an items variable, and we're going to go item by item, looping again with the for each that we have already used today. This is not item, this is items for each. And for each item, I'm going to do something. Now what I'm going to do is to delete it. Form dot delete item, and we're going to delete this current item. So if I have 5, 6, 7 items, it will go one by one and delete it. That's it, nothing more. Let's save it and let's run it again. So you can see that it deletes everything, sections, questions, and then creates a new question with the name group. Now I want to create the options. So the options, for now, I'm going to create it down here, and it will be, first I need to store this question in a variable. So this variable will be main cat question. So the main question we have, and here, down here, we can do main cat question dot set choice values, and we're going to add as the values an array. Which array? This array, cats. Save and run. And now you have, at least we have the first part. This won't work given everything that we're going to do following, but we're going to change this slightly, okay? So let's go to create the subcategories. How do I do this? I'm going to take my categories and loop one by one and start creating. For each category, we're going to create one section and one question, and then link it like I do here. So I'm going to create for each subcategories, create the section, create the question, and link the subcategory. So for this, we're going to do cats dot for each, again, our good friend for each for this time. So we're going to go category by category, and we're going to do all of this. So let's bring it up with Alt and the up arrow, and let's do this. Let's first create the section, a section variable. This will be form dot add page break item. This is a section. This is why this is not so easy to do the first time, because you need to search around a lot. So I hope that my research in this will help you make this if you've tried in the past. Now that we have the section, we're going to do a couple of things. First, we're going to give a title to the section. That will be the band or the category. So let's do set title and put cat. That is this. Remember, this cat is nothing more than Foo Fighters, Weezer, Green Day, etc., etc. So let's set the title. Next, very important, remember that at the beginning I told you that it's very important for, especially for all the sections that are not the last, that once I click, in this case the album or the subcategory, it goes directly to send the form. For this, I need to go to a property of the section that is called the navigation or the set go to page, and I'm going to choose some of the pre-defined options of form. In this case is the page navigation type, and the page navigation type I need is submit. So each subsection that I'm going to create needs to be submitted once I select the album, so I don't go to the other group, because it wouldn't make any sense. So now I've created the section. Now I'm going to create the question. So how? The same way we created this other question. Form dot add multiple choice item, and we're going to set the title again as the category. You could even do, if you're talking about albums, in this case, we could do albums by, maybe if you're talking about products, then you will say products of such category. Or if you're talking about countries, then cities of that country. Let's see it in action. So it should create the sections and the questions without any options. Run it. So Foo Fighters, album by Foo Fighters, Weezer, album by Weezer, and here I have my main question. Okay, now I need the options. So we already know that the options are created with this line. So let's do form dot set choice values, set. Sorry, first I need to store this question in a subcat question. And now let's do subcat question dot set choice values. But we haven't created the array of these choice values. So very similar to what we did here, organize arrays from sheets. Actually, this is another subsection here, another part of the code that we could do here. Organize array, very similar to what we did here. So I'm going to copy all of these. But this is not dupcat, but duplicate of the subcategory, dup subcat. And we're going to go for each data and map, not in row 0, but in row 1. But before doing the mapping, I need to filter. Why? Because if I only do this, it will bring all of the albums of all of the bands. And I just need the albums of this specific band. So this is why I need to use another method similar to map that is called filter. So we're going to do filter, and we're going very similar, a dot, and something very similar to this. We go row by row and see where row in the position 0, remember that in the 0 is where I have my main category, in this case bands, is equals to the category. Okay, so wherever Foo Fighters is in the group, I'm going to bring all of these, and then I'm going to map with the album or the subcategory. I know this may be confusing. I hope you go with me. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I don't need to do this shift because with the filter I already removed the header, but I do need to remove the duplicates. In the case you have duplicate, I don't have duplicates, but I've seen in the comments in my other video that you may have duplicates in your subcategory also. So in this case, it's better to and if you don't have, this won't do anything. So it's better to leave it than to remove it. So let's do again subcat for each subcat, so it's a bit clearer. Now we need to add, remember that we had this new array called cats. So now I'm going to create a new array called subcats, also empty. And here I'll say if subcats, if we are looking for this subcategory and you don't find it, then please include it. And that's it. Now I have my subcategory and I want to include it here. Subcats. Let's see if it works. Save and let's run. I don't have any errors. Let's see here. So apparently it worked. Foo Fighters and the album by Foo Fighters, Weezer and the album by Weezer, and so on. So I just need, so apparently this works, but we're not quite there because we still have not linked each option to each section. So this is what is missing. So how do we do this? I'm going to create another array here at the beginning in our initialization. in our connections and declarations, I'm going to create another array called cat options. So the options of the main question, again, this will be an empty array. And each time I go through each one of the options, at the end, I'm going to do this. I'm going to link the subcategory to the main category. How do I do this? I'm going to create a new variable called cat option. So in this case, one will be the option for Foo Fighters, the other one will be the option for Wizard, and so on and so on. For this, we're going to go to our main question. Now I don't remember what was the name, main cat question. And we're going to create a choice. So remember that before we always created the choices with these set choice values. It's very easy because we just need the value. But in this case, we not only need the value, but we also need the link to the section. This is why I need to create a choice object. It's not enough with the name of the option, but I need also a link to a section. So this is why I need to use this create choice. And I create the choice with two things. First is the name. So the name will be the category. And then I need the section. This is why I did all of this. This is why I have to go section by section, because I need to link this section I created at the beginning of the loop. So I'm going to do section. And finally, I'm going to add this option to the array we just created. So cat options dot push, and we're going to push this particular option. And at the end, this won't work anymore, these set choice values, but we need to do set choices. And here we're going to add our cat options. That's it. Let's see if it works. Save. And let's run it. Look at this here, and now in theory I not only have the main question and each of the sub questions, but I also have the link to the appropriate questions. So if I submit another response, now I have, when I select the group, it will go to the appropriate section and question, and then I can submit it. So now we've finished part one. Second part, I think this is the easiest one, is that if I use the original connection between forms and sheets, it will add always new columns, and this won't work. So what I'm going to do is to create a new sheet called responses, and I'm going to manually, or to let's say manually create a connection in Google Apps Script, so it brings it here. So I'm going to do timestamp, and then group, and then album. And we're going to create another function. This function will be called record answers in sheets, or record responses, better yet. For this, we're going to use a trigger. A trigger is a way that forms and sheets gives us to use certain objects when something happens. In this case, what happens is that a form will be sent. Once a form will be sent, it will send an associated object with the answers. And I collect these answers with this e.values. So let's store this in a responses variable. And what I'm going to do is, first we're going to log the responses to see what do we have here. And we're going to create the trigger so we can test it. So let's save this. Let's go to triggers. Let's do a trigger. We use record responses in sheets, and let's do on form submit, save. And let's try it out. The only way to try it out is to send a response. So let's do anything here. And we need to go to our executions and see if it worked. Maybe reload it a couple of times, refresh. Now I can see that it has sent a trigger based response. So here you see the response. The problem with this response is that I have a lot of blanks This is why here I have this very disorganized response collection. So what I need to do is to remove all of these blanks. And we're going to once again use the filter function today. So let's go to our script. And we're going to do responses.filter. It's the simplest filter of them all. Response, and then also response. Okay. So as long as it finds something, this is a very easy way to remove blanks from an array. As long as it finds something, it will keep it. If it finds blank, it will remove it. And now let's call this clean responses, or simply, well, whatever, clean responses. And now it's as easy as connecting again to our worksheet and then to our spreadsheet, but not the options spreadsheet, but the response spreadsheet. So here, let's change this for responses. So first we connect to our worksheet again, and then we connect to the responses sheet, changing this for responses. And finally, we're going to use the append row method to add a new row. So ss responses dot append row, and we're going just to append this clean responses array that has the timestamp and, in our case, category and subcategory, band and group. That's it. Let's save it and let's try it out. So let's submit another response. And here again, you need to keep this. Please don't delete it, just hide it. But here in my responses, I have what I want. That is a simplified answer, just the group and the album. Even though we have 6 questions, it will just record 2 of them. That's it. And the only thing I want at the end of it is that when I change something here, it automatically updates my form, so I don't need to do anything. So what I can do is to create, I don't need to do any code anymore. Just going to save this, and I'm going to create another trigger. So I'm going to add a trigger, not from the record responses and sheets this time, but from the conditional dropdowns function, and then not on open, not on form submit, but on change. Why not on edit? Because on edit is only when I change things in a cell. On change also include things like adding a new row or adding a new column. Or when, for example, if I delete a row, it will also update. So let's save it. And let's try it out. Let's say, for example, that I'm going to remove this album. I don't like this Foo Fighters album, so I'm going to delete it. That's it. So Foo Fighters should have only 3 albums. So this should be already being in the back, should be updating. And now you can see that Foo Fighters only have 3 albums. So if I try to submit another response and I do Foo Fighters, I'm going to find just 3 albums. And if I change the color and the shape and call this Deluxe Edition, just for changing, this will trigger the function again. Very cool. So it may take a little while, but now if I refresh and I do Foo Fighters, I have here my Deluxe Edition. And if I select it and do submit, I have it here. There are optimizations you could do. This trigger also, if I have other sheets and do something on the other sheets, it will always run on the background, so it may be a bit heavy to run it so many times. So maybe you can in the future do a condition that it in the trigger it only works in this sheet, but this is for more advanced customization, and you can ask me in the Patreon page if you want. Thank you so much. I know it was heavy, I know it was long. I hope it works for someone. And if you want just to download the template, you can find it in the Patreon page. See you next time. Thank you so much.